Okay, now we're heading back from Eastland back to Templestowe. The route I'm taking now is on the Ringwood bypass, back to Maroondah Highway, up Mitcham Road and up Blackburn Road, and then back along Reynolds Road and Foot Street. So here we take off. We've just picked up the first sign. Background a little bit lighter, make the black stand out a bit better. It's on order, it's picking up the speed signs and it will alert me if I'm over the speed limit. The real test, however, is that the school zones are now on. Actually, here's a good test. There's two speed signs there right next to here, and this didn't pick up those speed signs. That's good. Often there's a speed sign in a service lane or something close by, or like those two signs, and they'll be picked up. So I've got to go in and reduce the distance that it can be actually picked up from. So quite a bit of complex work has gone into creating this speed limit alerts web app. Far greater amount of time than what I actually expected to put into it, but I like solving puzzles, and whilst I probably felt like giving up a few times, even quite regularly in fact, you get to another point you think, oh no, like even this last one with the score, there's some dates that I haven't quite understand how the dates function works inside JavaScript. Gets a bit frustrating, but anyway, you persist and you get there, a tool that can be used by yourself, your family and others, so I think it's sort of worthwhile. Right now I'm driving along here, I know it's 60, the sign says 60, everything's fitting into place. There is a couple of spots where I know that this won't work. If there's a road that forked off from here and you kept going at 60 but you forked off into another direction, and one of those is like, I think it's Malvern Road, forks off into Batesford Road in Chatston, down there in that direction near the Holmesland College. Now there's no signs if you come from west to east. The one sign over Warrigal Road has been taken off. There's only one sign if you're coming back from east to west that indicates it's a 60 km/h road. So literally you would not know what the speed is. However, I think Malvern Road itself is probably 60 or something like that. And if it's higher, then when you veer off, the speed is not going to be adjusted, because it's not enough to make it a corner, which is when it actually zeroes it out. But here we go, we're now on 80, coming up here, should flick up to 80.
School zone ahead. The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
Now you'll hear the nav man has actually said it's 40 kilometres along here, but have a look at this, it's actually 60 kilometres an hour. Now we've hit the sign, mine goes to 60. I'm not exactly sure what the Waze is saying. I think it's saying 60, or is that saying 80? Jeez. So that's the problem, is I can't see it. It's just too damn small. It's saying 80. Now, you come along here at 80, the police are going to sit here and book you. So, Waze is not helping you one little bit avoid that situation. Which I think is a real shame. It's a good product. They've got the resources to put into it, but they've made it good enough so that people don't complain. But I just don't think that that's good enough. This should be on Waze telling me what the speed is that I should be going. In any case, my web app does that. It's actually programmed for the time of day, day of week, and the seasons. So here we go, we're now hitting the 80, and there we go. So we can speed up to the speed limit, close to the speed limit. Watching these cars zip in and out. So the next thing is to don't know which one that bing came from. It certainly wasn't mine. So now we're approaching a 70, and it's clicked over. So that's really what I built it for, or built the speed limit alerts web app for, is to assist me when I'm driving. I can only do so much without other people's help, and any help is appreciated, but ultimately I go on the same sort of roads all the time, so the web app will work for me, and if there's any issues, I'll fix those areas. If others let me know that there's issues in their areas, then I'm happy to fix those as well, as long as the amount of work involved doesn't overwhelm me. For interstate, where I haven't got any speed sign coverage, that will require assistance from quite a few people in various states. That's ultimately their choice. I will probably document some of the speed signs when I drive. Interestingly, I've got a simulator which I can actually put my dash cam videos into and go through them and speed through them. So the other day I did from Albury down to Melbourne, which is about a 3-hour trip. It took about an hour, I'd say, to review that trip and to find the speed signs. I do have a feeling that I'm probably going to see if I can create a more automated way of spotting the speed signs and collecting the locations, but it all takes time, it all takes effort, and programming something complex does take a lot of effort. So but sometimes I do that just for the challenge, because that's what I do. Some people do crosswords, others do Sudoku. I write programs. If something interests me, I write a program. And it's actually been reasonably good in terms of giving me another source of income. Although Google tends to come back and cut that income on a regular basis, because ultimately, think of Google as looking for, think of it as a network. You start down the biggest companies. Now the biggest companies splinter down to smaller companies, and those smaller companies splinter down to smaller companies again. But most people are looking for the big companies. So Google is trying to feed the information to the most people, and so somebody like me is irrelevant. So eventually Google spots what I'm doing and pushes it down. They update the algorithm. The latest one for the speed camera location site has
School zone ahead. The speed limit is
income over the last 6 months
kilometres.
quartered. So what was paying about $3,000 a year is unlikely, unless this part of it takes off, unlikely
School
to get
zone
more
ahead.
than about
The
500.
speed limit is 40 kilometres.
So it's the navman binging there, sitting on 40 kilometres an hour speed zone. It actually picked up that ride speed zone, alerted me. My own one picked up the speed zone, told me I was actually didn't slow down enough. It's very easy to pick up a bit of speed though. And back up to 60. I did have mine at one stage binging me every time I went below the speed limit. So as it went out of the green and I'm supposed to be doing say 60 and it went down to early 50s, it would bing me, and I thought, no, that's going to annoy the daylights out of everybody. So I got rid of that feedback, because it's almost impossible when you slow down, because the cars slow down in front of you. You speed up and you slow down, so you're not going to stay in that 5 kilometre limit region underneath the speed limit or up to the speed limit. So that was a good test. Again, it went through the school zone without an issue. So we're going to do a couple of school zones today and just see how we go. Now do keep in mind that this is actually just working on your location as known by the phone and the location of speed signs. Really not much more than that, and yet as we go along and the road curves around, gently curves around, it's actually picking up the keeping the speed limits correct, which is how I've designed it. So I'm very happy with that component of it. But a hairpin bend where you do a U-turn, it's going to turn around and reset the speed to unknown. In country areas where there are no speed signs, it's going to set it to unknown. So it's important that people know that in regional towns the default speed limit is 50. In regional areas in Victoria, other than that, it's the default speed limit's 100 unless signed else otherwise. Yeah, around Melbourne the default speed limit is 50 unless there's signs, and so never really thought about the country default speed limit, and sort of, you know that it's 100 kilometres an hour, but do you really? But there is a push to bring all those country regions down to a slower speed. It's the government's push to reduce the road toll, but in my opinion it will probably have marginal change to the road toll. The real problem is the government's working on Victoria, 300 and something people a year killed in the road toll, which is an absolute tragedy for everybody involved, including extended family. But if you look at it, usually half of those people had no choice in what happened. They were affected by somebody else. It's because somebody has made a mistake, and only half of the people generally are making a mistake. So drugs, alcohol, it's been reported by some people that could be up to 70%. So a lot of the stuff that they're doing, mobile phones, according to the ratio of accidents and deaths per accidents, all of these mobile phone technologies where they're spending tens of millions of dollars to raise hundreds of millions of dollars in fines will make a difference in Victoria of probably around 2 deaths per year. 2 is still great, but it's not going to make the significant difference. On the other hand, electric vehicles are about 50% heavier, and heavier vehicles, where we've pushed all the cars to SUVs and heavy electric vehicles, the stats in America is that heavy vehicles increase the road toll by 1 in 1,000 accidents. In Victoria, there's about 8,000 accidents a year, so that means 8 deaths occurring because of our heavier vehicles, and they're just getting heavier with electric vehicles. So the effect of saving lives with mobile phones will be overwhelmed by the effect of heavier vehicles. I personally don't know what the answer is. I'd like to know more information, maybe with the public knowing more information. It's just a number, but if we knew where the risk factors were, we could calculate the risk, we could work on that, we could work out where it's riskier. Just like with speeding fines. If you look at the map of the speed camera locations, you'll see there's some locations that make 5 million or more a year in speeding fines. It's a huge amount of people, a huge amount of money collected from people, but it means a lot of people are making the same mistake at the same location. So check those locations, see why people are making the mistakes. For example, on freeways, the Metropolitan Ring Road, over near Sydney Road, there's a speed camera, those 3 lanes. If you're travelling in the right-hand lane, cars tend to travel faster. If you're travelling in the right-hand lane on a freeway, you'll try to keep up with the speed. You'll try to keep up with the speed of the cars around you, and often you'll travel faster without even thinking about it. You'll also, if there's a speed change, won't notice it. So it's a good idea not to get into that right-hand lane if you feel so that you're going to be influenced by other people's driving behaviour, because they'll sit on your backside pushing you to go faster. So the limit is 100, but they'll want to go more than 100, so you'll feel pressure to drive in a certain way, in a way that you shouldn't drive. So driving in the right-hand lane on where there are speed cameras increases your chances of significantly getting a speeding fine. It may only be for a small amount over. So in actual fact, that's a bit of a myth. They're not actually booking people for only a small amount over. If you look at the figures, and I've tried to collect the figures, in fact in South Australia do provide the figures. In South Australia, on a fixed or mobile camera situation, there is not a single fine under 66 kilometres per hour. Now, if police book you, they can book you for a lower speed limit. So, but most of the fines are probably not police in their vehicles. So, if you look at it from that point of view, they're booking you for 66 kilometres an hour, but in Victoria they give you 2 or 3 kilometres an hour because that allowance is not for you, it's for their equipment, so that they can actually, by law, have it calibrated within 2 or 3 kilometres an hour. So if the equipment is dead on, you can actually be travelling not 66 but 68 or 69. Now, your speedo is also usually about 4 kilometres an hour, so your speedo is reading well over the 70. So if you're doing that sort of speed, you're not paying attention, and you're deliberately going well above the speed limit. So something like the web app, or Waze, whichever one you want to use, anything that keeps you within the speed limit will potentially save you money. I like the way in Victoria it was the civic compliance. If you don't comply, you can get fined. It's as simple as that, for not complying to what the rules of the government wants at the time.
The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
And now that was interesting. The navman picked up, it's the speed limit ahead. At this point in time, I've just turned the corner. The speed limit is not yet. There's a sign straight in front of me that says 60 kilometres an hour. So at that point, it's still 60 kilometres an hour, which is okay, but it is 40 at this time of day at a school zone. So we've now, you can see that it's picked up the 60 kilometre an hour speed sign. And full credit to the government's data. I mean, I was really quite annoyed at it at the start, because there were so many errors and it took me so much time just to tidy up the data. I'm talking about days, if not weeks, to get the data, massage it into a meaningful amount, remove so many errors out of the data. But putting it in perspective, 60,000 records. I've probably adjusted 2,000 of those, maybe 5%. It's probably 10 or 15% in error. That means that I've got 85 to 90%. That sign, I did not put that sign in. That was from the government's data and it picked it up beautifully. I did not put these signs in that are coming up. I don't know if they're actually in yet because I haven't actually tested it, but I'm fairly confident it will be. And if we look, Waze is still saying 60, the navman's saying 40. There's no problems if the navman's saying 40. It's a bit early, but that doesn't matter. It's not going to always, as you can see from the traffic, it doesn't make a scrap of difference because you're driving at a slower speed. As long as I don't try doing a U-turn, which, interestingly enough, is illegal over a white line, a single white line. You can turn off the road but not do a U-turn. So here we go, we've switched over to 40. The navman has turned around and the navman has gone off when it really should continue to be indicating it's a restriction, and the Waze is telling me 60. So Waze does not prevent you from going through these time of day areas where the speed limit is restricted. So do keep in mind, whilst I've programmed it into it, there'll be lots of areas which are not yet, I don't know where the errors in the data are, so if people find them, please feel free to report them. Go on. Oh well. I can't help you, sorry mate. It's exciting to see all the young people get out of school and thinking that they're in there growing their skills. It's a good time of life, hard time of life, but it's a good time. That's one of the problems when people stop unexpectedly, because they have to, the car coming out there has to give way. That's the law. And this person stops for a car to give way politely. But the real problem is they're actually holding up more cars behind them by giving way to that car. So it's actually better to drive according to the law than to drive politely, which is a bit hard. I'm a polite person, I like to give way, but I've seen multiple times where cars stop in the middle of nowhere for what appears to be no apparent reason, and when they should be moving, and that's enough to cause an accident. So but it's nice to think people are polite. That's a good thing, no matter what. Just you have to be aware that people are going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to actually now continue across to Doncaster Secondary College. I think we've got enough time for that. So the speed limit alerts which I wrote is performing as good as I'd want it to. So I'm very happy with it. It's doing everything that I've put into it. It's taken a lot of time, but I'm very pleased with how it's performing at this point in time. Now, I'm not saying use mine over Waze. I think Waze is an excellent product, very good product. The number of people using it means you get far more incidents reported on it. You get much greater coverage of mobile speed cameras and other police vehicles or whatever. But as you can see, I'm able to use both. In actual fact, I'm able to use Google Maps on an Android. So I can have Google Maps running with Waze, with my web app like this. And so that gives me, I like using Google Maps for directions. I haven't used Waze for directions, so I don't tend to have a bias towards it. I'm very used to using Google Maps for the directions, so I'm happy with that product. But they don't give me yet, I believe it's changing, but they don't give me speed limits. If you haven't got a route on or that you wish to follow, then you get no information. But if you've got a route, you get the speed limit on mine currently, and I believe people are saying
School zone ahead. The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
You can see we've turned. Now there's no sign to pick up. It's actually using the road set up as a series of nodes, I would guess. But now here we go, the first speed sign is picked up. So it's good. Now this is a permanent 40, and I think, if I can see correctly, barely, but Waze is showing us 40 because these are standard speed signs, 40 kilometre hour, no change of time of day. So that's excellent, that's a good test. You see that we came into the street, it's a 50 kilometre hour street. We turned off at 60 as well, that this was a 50 kilometre hour street because there's no sign to let them know. And my system doesn't let you know. So when you turn off one street onto another, it's unknown, and that's exactly what it is for drivers. Waze and Waze states that it's whatever speed it is. I couldn't see it, but I'm assuming that it probably says it's 50 kilometres an hour, and I think that's a good approach. I mean, I think that's an excellent approach. I'm more interested in, if you're driving, that you've been given the information you need to drive on the road, and the speed signs are the ultimate arbiter of that situation. And if for some reason you aren't given a speed sign and you're not obeying the road laws, but you're not informed, I don't think that's fair on the driver. So if there's a situation where it's through no fault of your own, you're actually booked and fined for driving, I think that a fair and reasonable magistrate should review that and decide yes or no, you've got a good case. I've often seen that you may get, I've seen the situation where a person going through the intersection up here, the timing on the red light speed cameras was wrong, set wrong. They went to court. I went as a witness, which the magistrate completely ignored me, and the evidence that I was presenting treated me like I was a friend, which I had no previous relationship with this person.
School zone ahead. The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
So, but the person the judge or magistrate said that they can't do anything about the points, but they're happy to waive the fine. So, which is a good outcome, as in there's no financial loss, just loss of demerit points. And if you're a good driver, that will have no impact on you over the next 3 years. If you're a bad driver, then that's a problem. So you'll notice that said, the navman said that there was, I think it was the navman said that there was a school zone ahead. Well, not according to the street signs. There is a school zone down the side street, but certainly not straight ahead. So the navman itself, again, even having the navman, it's not a bad thing. Use the navman letting you know the speed cameras, my web app letting you know, Waze letting you know. If you have multiple reminders going on at the one time, I mean, it can be annoying for others in the car, but geez, it's going to stop you from getting fined. So to me, that's a good outcome. So now this next one is a time of day situation, so we'll go past, I don't know what this school's called. What's really interesting for me is actually the road. If we turn right here, we're on Williamson's Road. Williamson's Road has a bend in it that takes you down over into Eltham, over across the Yarra. But when you look at the road, you'd think that it goes straight ahead. But at that time that it turns or bends off, which is a traffic light, which looks like a T intersection, if you go straight ahead, then you're in Manningham Road. And what's interesting about that is that because the road curves around, the speed limit is the same speed limit as Williamson's Road. You're not changing. So whilst there may be one speed limit on Manningham Road, that's not the speed limit that applies as you come around from Williamson's Road, because you're still in Williamson's Road. That's when you hit the next sign, which I think is 70 kilometres an hour. So 70 kilometres an hour all the way up to this intersection. I think it's unbelievable. Past a major shopping area with such busy traffic, I'm just gobsmacked that this is not at a minimum 60 kilometres an hour. Yet across that to the left there, 60 kilometres an hour, I believe. So it is interesting. And that speed camera is actually what probably started my interest, because of the timing element of it, because it caught somebody I knew. They took off, a car in front of them, it's 2 lanes wide, a car in front of them took off, but then stopped, and they didn't realise that they thought they were in the intersection. But if you have a look at it, you can actually be over that white line by a great deal. And that's one thing, if you do get stopped, have a look where you are quickly and don't panic. You may actually be able to sit where you are without driving forward. You drive forward as they did, and they got flashed and an expensive red light camera fine. So if you can sit there and your nose isn't far enough, because the intersection starts where the roads cross, not where the gutters are. So you'll see here, not in the intersection. Here is when I get into the intersection where the roads cross. So there you can see that there's a very large area of concrete, which means that you can actually pull up right up to the edge of that and maybe even reverse back, so you don't have to go forward. So you can see it's 70 kilometres an hour along here, because this is Williamson's Road. Now I'm just going to go straight ahead here.
School zone ahead. The speed
That's good that it gives you plenty of notice. So you can come, as you come up to here, you can drop the speed down. According to Waze, there's often a police car sitting there to book people going too fast, but I, for the life of me, have gone past there multiple times when Waze says there's a mobile camera, and I have never seen it. So there we're up to. There we go.
School zone ahead. The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
You can see I did a U-turn. Picks up the 40, do a left-hand turn, drops out to unknown, and then picks up the speed limit again. That's exactly how I want it to go. If that speed sign is too close to the corner, then sometimes I'll adjust the speed sign to move it a little bit further away, so it can be picked up. So I have to make slight adjustments for the system. Most of the time I don't have to, but there's one in Lower Templestowe where it's literally on the corner, so when you go around you can't even see the speed sign because it's right there on the corner, left above the car, so you'd very easily miss that speed sign. So that one I have moved a little bit further down away from the corner. That's one of the problems. This isn't meant to be an exact representation of what the government's data is. It's meant to be a good representation plus some adjustments. Now, not all of the things I adjust in the data. I do have a separate adjustment file for if there's for example, a service road running parallel, or a run-in lane where the speed is 70 going onto a freeway or something, or 80 going onto a freeway which is 100, which then runs parallel for a while and then increases up to 100 when they join. So here we go, round the corner, and speed sign again. Now we'll go up Linwood Parade here and go past another school. In fact, there'll be two lots of signs, so it'll be actually quite interesting. One will be fixed, actually I think most of them are timed on this one, so that'll be interesting to see as well. I did notice a sign I didn't have from the other direction yesterday, whenever I went along there. So I'm not sure if there's... So new signs go up, old signs go down, so there is a good amount of work in making sure that the signs match the actual road. We go around it, you'll see that it resets, and then we drive along, and then we get to the sign and it tells us it's 60. That's absolutely beautiful.
School zone ahead. The speed limit is 40 kilometres.
New speed limit. So speed limit ahead. So what's interesting with the Navman is that when it goes off, it won't warn you. Now I didn't pick up that speed sign there or there, so they're all new speed signs that I can actually incorporate into my data. Well, that's excellent. That's exactly why I came this way. This is what I'm saying when the data that is available from the government is out of date. The data, yeah, it shouldn't be this far out of date, but it is. So that's life. It's just an administrative process that isn't kept up to date. So nothing you can do about it. So it's my intention to pick up that information, incorporate it into my system, and then we have a better system to help people. At this stage, if I don't pick it up, I'm no worse than Waze, because Waze is showing 60. I had to put my glasses on to be able to see that 60, it's so small. Now young people probably won't, well, it depends on your eyesight. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, it really depends on your eyesight. I mean, I can see the car numbers ending in 936, so I can read the signs, so my longer distance vision is absolutely fine. And my short distance vision, which really was my best, I'm short-sighted, or was short-sighted, is my best, but it's now getting a little bit harder as I get older. It's all part of the aging process. There is a 60 sign, so. Now I do have a tool that the passenger can use in the car when driving along, that it beeps to let you know that the speed sign is there, and if there's no beep for the speed sign, you can just click on the speed sign, 60, 40, 80, whatever it may be, school zone, etc. So that when we're driving, that I can sit there as the passenger, updating the database on a drive on roads that I haven't been along. I've also got a simulator that I run on my computer. It took me, if you think I've written this app, but I've also written apps to help me along the way. I have a speed sign location page. I have a simulator on my desktop that I can run this dash cam through and pick up the location of these signs and the bearing that I'm going. So all of that took a lot of work. Now we come along here, it picks up the right sign. So I go along this road frequently to Red Rooster and McDonald's, so it's expected that I'd know that I'd have this road, but that road I don't take as often, or very often at all. Actually, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea when going from a 40 to a 60, where there's a change of speed zone, to being, but it could get a bit annoying. But so anyway, I've built in enough features, and if anybody's got any suggestions for features, my main thing with this is a lot of things I got to add. Sort of small roadworks where people block the road or whatever, but ultimately my web app is to turn around and help people to drive within the speed limit, to minimise their potential for getting speeding fines or fines from using their phone when they shouldn't, by alerting them to the fact that there is a potential risk ahead. So, and some people would say we shouldn't be alerting people, but different governments have different opinions. For example, just recently, the police dispute is saying that they will let the public know where the mobile cameras are. Now, if the police are doing it against their own other government agencies, they're doing it themselves. They provide the data of where all of these cameras are. So, and modern cars incorporate that. If you don't have a modern car, you're disadvantaged. A lot of students don't have a modern car with these modern tools in them. So, and they're the ones who get hit hard with a very hefty fee. Like millionaires end up paying the same amount of money as a person who's struggling, paying off HEX fees or whatever. So there's a huge disparity. I know of one executive who lost their license, and when they lost their license, they basically got rid of their lease and hired a chauffeur to drive around. So using the money they would have spent on their lease to hire an occasional chauffeur. Who can afford to do that? So there is the people with not much money are certainly hit far harder than those people. Like Dan Andrews got fined $50 for wearing a mask with his $300,000 to $500,000 salary. It's a pittance for him. But other people who are earning $30,000 to $50,000, $50 here and there hurts. So there is just no fairness in the fine system. And even if you tried to make it fair, if you think about well-off people, they may not appear to be making much money, but they're able to turn around and have ways of being paid less but compensated more. Company, I think one of those tech titans didn't actually get a salary at all, and was just paid remuneration in shares. So there are ways for the rich people to reduce their income. It's probably to below what others are making. But again, they can do that. The less well-off financially, you have no choice because you have no other way. You can't hide money or reduce your money because ultimately that's the money you need to live on. So I really like if the system was fairer, but bottom line is we're fined as civic compliance. We're fined for not complying. If we comply, there's no fine. Be aware though is that there's multiple ways that you can make a mistake, not deliberately speed but make a mistake, not see a sign, not recognise the change of speed zones. There's multiple ways you can make errors and not deliberately speed. So it's not just something you do deliberately, it's things that you do inadvertently by mistake. There's one spot actually over near Mitcham Road where I turned right into Springvale Road, and like everybody else I would speed up. There's a 80 km/h sign and I had Waze on and it was beeping at me and I'm thinking, what the heck, it says 80 km/h. What I didn't realise is that section of road until I get to the 80 is actually 60, because coming through Donvale it's 60. So until you get to the sign, so you think that top section is, because you've never seen or don't see the 60 km/h sign and you just see the 80 on that section of road, and so you don't realise. So I was actually breaking the law, as so was everybody else that was turning around, because I couldn't keep up with them. Anyway, that's the end of my drive today, so thank you very much for keeping me company and listening to me ramble on about my web app and what I've been doing. I appreciate the company and appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to listen to the video. Thank you.